My written testimony will be included in the record, so I want to use my time to just sort of emphasize a few points. First, each of you and all of these witnesses have spoken repeatedly and eloquently about the heavy burden of paperwork on small businesses. And I just want to drop a footnote here that use of the total burden hours, the 9 billion hours, can be misleading because that figure includes not only the hours spent incurring a liability or monitoring an obligation, like a tax form, but also hours spent to obtain a benefit, like a small business loan, or a student loan, or veterans benefits, or Social Security benefits, or Medicare benefits. All of those hours are combined. And to speak of the totals repetitively, I think masks the very important differences. Now, it is true that the heaviest burden comes from the IRS. And it is customary to beat up on the IRS for its heavy-duty forms. I would like to point out that the IRS is the most aggressive agency in attempting to streamline and simplify forms. Administrator Dudley referred to it this morning. The GAO cited it as a model, along with EPA 2 years ago, for an effort to try to break through all of this. There's also the benefit side of the burden. And again, Administrator Dudley spoke of that. It's in my written testimony, and I don't think I want to go through that. Clearly, all of this aside, paperwork does pose very serious burdens on small businesses. And I think you're right. I think it's great that you convened this hearing, that you asked the questions. As to the issue you posed to Administrator Dudley, is the PRA really working? I was there for 5 years during the Clinton administration. My own instinct, no empirical data is there because there's no counterfactual basis from which to measure. My instinct is it does work. And some of the proof of that is in remarks that you and others have made about the fact that agencies are reluctant to send things forward to OIRA. They realize that the PRA process imposes time, cost, effort constraints, and negotiating with OMB is not always the most fun thing to happen, and therefore I think they have held back. Now, to achieve, can we do better? I think yes, we can, and I wanted to move to the positive side. To do that, we identified the barriers. We are all in agreement that the single largest barrier is the fact that Congress mandates these information collections. I suspect that as we sit here talking about reducing burdens, there are hearings in other rooms of this building and across the way where committees are thinking about how they should impose new obligations. National security, we've seen a lot of that. We see it in a lot of other areas as well. And the fact that Congress is making these decisions is something that the PRA can't do anything about, regrettably. The PRA does not trump another statute. Now, the other barrier goes to the question that I think Congresswoman Clark was talking about, which is the multiplicity of same requests. How do we stop that? Well, I think the government is taking some steps with this business gateway to try to get information once and use it in several fashions. But a lot of times, a form will have specialized questions with specialized terms, or you might say idiosyncratic definitions. The term employee might be used by various programs in the same agency or in different agencies in different ways, so you can't take the answer and incorporate it wholesale into another form. Why do those differences exist? It's not because of agency silliness or stubbornness. It's because the underlying program creates certain terms which the agency has to deal with. Now, one of the things that I was very excited about was when the task force was set up, the first item on the agenda was come up with ways of consolidating information requests across agencies and even within an agency. And I eagerly awaited the first report. First report was long on the challenges they face. short on the accomplishments. There were, I think, 5 or 6 in Appendix 5, several of which had gone back several years. And what was particularly disappointing was that there was no roadmap of how to go further. Why not call for the agencies to put forth a list of instances where, with some technical modifications in the definitions or the cutoffs or some of the other qualifications, you could, in fact, consolidate a number of requests within an agency or across agencies, and then you, working with the committees of jurisdiction, can serve this up to the Congress and actually accomplish some real difference. And I have to invoke the committees of jurisdiction. As Dr. Brady was talking about, the source of this are the regulations which come from HHS or CMS or the different areas. And it's not clear that by your saying reduce paperwork is going to produce anything until the committees of jurisdiction say, let's get real. 2 other quick things, if I may. The suggestion of the chairwoman on the CIOs, the role of the CIO, and on whether OIRA should be limited to review of significant forms are 2 items that I discuss at some length in my testimony before House Government Reform, it was then called, I think, in 2006. I'd be happy to get you a copy of that testimony, but those are ideas that I think do bear looking at. Otherwise, I would continue pressing on what you have accomplished in setting up the agenda in the Small Business Paperwork Relief Act. I am not saying it works perfectly. To the contrary, we need to do more. But there are ways of doing it that are smart and productive, and I would encourage you to work in that regard. Thank you.